Hey, what's up guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. Welcome to the community. Welcome to the channel. This is the first time you are seeing me. Please consider liking and subscribing. We're real tech for real people. Today's video is on the Sony A90J Master Series OLED, which I did a video on a few days ago, giving you some of the release dates, which will be March 3rd and March 8th for the 55-inch and the 65-inch brand new, much brighter HDMI 2.1 OLED that many of you cannot wait for. I cannot wait for it. I will actually have some hands-on time with the Sony A90J with spare change, Shane from Spare Change. We're going to go down to Value Electronics, spend some time with it. Get our hands on the remote, hopefully compare it to the Panasonic and the LG ZX, and tell you what we really think of it, especially initially. Now, the reason for this video is many of you know that I have an LG C10 CX behind me. This is a 55-inch, but I also had a 77-inch that recently went back to the store as it had terrible banding. I had a lot of issues with it. Many of you guys have had issues with your panels last year from all manufacturers, but it was definitely a struggle. And I had said in many videos that I was going to go with another CX simply because I've enjoyed the CX. I've had this one again since March. I've used it as a gaming PC, gaming monitor. I've really enjoyed it, and reassured or at least explained why I was getting another CX. So many of you, after seeing my Master Series video, right away said, that's yours. You have to get that one. It's a little bit larger at 83 inches or the 880, but the 83-inch, which hasn't been announced for its exact release date or price, we're guessing anywhere from $6,500 to $8,000. I'm guessing it's going to be about $7,000. And many of you have said HDMI 2.1 gaming features, that's going to be the one for you. And this video is basically to explain why I don't feel that's the case and why I'm going to be sticking with the LG CX OLED.
It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Okay guys, so many of you that have followed the channel have seen my journey with the LG CX C10. I call it the CX. I'll be calling it that from this point forward. This will be a longer video. I do long form videos. It is a discussion based channel. I apologize. However, having the LG here, having the Series X, the PS5, and a PC, and using this display. Now, the road with the CX has been bumpy. Many of you that have followed it and known its challenges. Right from jump, when it was released, there was a lot of criticism about it not being full bandwidth at 40 gigabytes per second versus 48. So it was kind of disliked right off the bat. And then it had issues with some raised blacks. It had issues with lower peak brightness, had all kinds of problems. Mine had like a crawling black, almost like Venom. It had a lot of posterization. It's had issues on the whites. Mine versus this one, this 55, had a lot of problems. But by the end of it going back, other than a screen uniformity issues, I fell so deeply in love with it. And it was like a bipolar abusive relationship that I really just want that panel back. So now the situation that I'm in now is with Value Electronics, the company that I also work with. We are dear friends. They are looking for a cleaner CX for me. It has to be QC'd by them. Then I have to give approval on it, and then their calibrator, Jonathan, will also calibrate it. So many of you have seen as time has gone by, it's been a little over a month now. Now look, they obviously have other things going on. They're helping me out, so it's not like it's taking that long to find a clean one. But many of you are saying, look, why bother? You know, why don't you get either a C1 or wait for the G1 Evo, or here is the Master Series at 83 inches. So I'm going to go through as quickly as possible my reasoning for not doing that. Now, look, I might see it next week and be completely blown away and tell you, look, erase this video. I'm in love with it. I have to have it. But my experience has told me between the ZX and the Z9G and all the panels I've seen in so many years, very few of them have made me say, oh my God, I have to have that. I could be a little too seasoned. I could be where I'm not as in wonderment now with panels. So it'll have to really blow me away. And also take into account this, the CX was very affordable at launch in comparison to the C9 and obviously the C8. and is very affordable now at 77 inches, considering a few years ago they were about 15 grand. Now they're $3,200. I paid a lot more for mine because mine was in early fall. Now, I'm getting that money back in credit in a way, if you think about it this way. So if I take that money and then I go for the 83 inch, right off the bat, the 83 inch, in my opinion, is going to be between $6,500 and $8,000. So no matter what, I'll be adding a few $1,000s to it. So it'll be almost 50% more expensive in some ways. It's not going to be 50% better. So I can tell you that right off the bat. Now, I'm not putting Sony's yet to be released panel down yet, but I'm telling you how my thought process is. And you guys ask me a lot what my process is, and this is my process. Where's the TV going to be? It's 83 inches. That's great. I have a 77. I do feel 77 is the limit for 4K in my room, simply because I am very close. If you have an 85-inch 4K display and you're further back, that is fine. For me, I game between 4 and 5 feet away, and I watch movies between 8 and 9 feet away. So I'm very close. The 77-inch CX just appeared so much larger than my 75-inch 900E. I know it doesn't make sense. It's only a few inches bigger, but when you add the width and the height, it is much larger. Jump to 83 inches. As much as I would love to be even more immersed, my fear is it may be soft if I'm too close to it. So there's that. Also, perhaps nearly double the price. So right off the bat, those are two huge hurdles for my own personal display. But more importantly for me is usage. Now, if I was perhaps buying it just for movies or streaming, especially as a movie panel, I might go right to it and just say, hey, I want the best movie watching experience that I can find. But I am a gamer. In terms of this panel is used between 80 and 90% of the time in gaming. A lot of you guys share that same usage, and it's very, very important to realize the difference. So going back to Sony, Sony has always been known to have gorgeous game modes. The way their game mode is out of the box. I had the CX go against the TCL. I had it go against the 950H and the A9S. The A9S and the Sony 950H right out of the box looked better. Their game modes just are very striking. They're very clean. They're not overly blue. They're gorgeous. But other than that and a decent input lag, there really wasn't anything for gamers. So right away, you're going to say, as you said in the comments, but Brian, this is going to have HDMI 2.1 and 4K 120 will be available right at launch. Fair. That is great. Here's the thing for me, though. It's going to be their first year addressing these. Now, many of you are going to say, well, look, Brian, they have the PlayStation, so it should be a natural fit. They're not the same department. They barely speak to each other from what I understand, so don't expect it to be perfectly seamless. Now, for me, the LG C9 and the CX behind me, G-Sync, FreeSync, variable refresh rate, auto low latency mode, using all of these things in tandem since I picked up the Xbox Series X and the PS5, as well as having a PC with an NVIDIA card, I will be utilizing and have been utilizing this panel. And I feel like they just fit so well together. Not to mention, so we're talking about gaming here. It's not a promised feature. It's here. I use it every day. And I'll be doing Series X and PS5 thoughts videos and HDMI 2.1 videos. Now, what I mean by that is if you have HDMI 2.0 and you max out at 4K 60, you're still getting an amazing experience at 60 frames per second without any screen tearing due to the fact that most games have VSync built in. You're not really going to see screen tearing anyway. But the responsiveness of this panel, playing games, even older titles like Halo at 4K 120, or playing Call of Duty Cold War at 4K 120, and multiplayer has been amazing and actually very jarring when I go back to playing it on another panel that is maxed out at 4K 60. Now, that is what I paid for in regards to this. Now, if I have 4K 120, the A9 or the A90J Master series, that's fantastic. But it's their first shot at it. The 900H hasn't been seamlessly given 4K 120. There were some issues with it. I think that have been addressed. But my point is I don't really trust Sony at this point with the gaming side of it. If I didn't already have the CX, I wouldn't feel it as much. But if I went from the CX to the A90J, gaming-wise, it would be obvious. I do like the response time. Now, the response time of the A90J is supposed to be better. The input lag is supposed to also be better. But the features, the full features of this panel, how quick it moves, how quickly it recognizes everything, the operating system, the way it easily handles PC and the new consoles has made it the best, most fully functional games display out there. Even better than Samsung, in my opinion, as it has 4 HDMI 2.1 ports. One thing is also the Master Series will only have 2 HDMI 2.1 ports. I already use all of my ports here. Even though I have a receiver, I do like them hooked up to the display and use eARC. But that is a big part of why I won't just jump ship to the A9S Master Series. The other is picture quality, or I should say picture settings. I've had Sonys for years. I love Sony. I do feel that their picture settings, not calibration, but picture settings for us, their presets have gotten less. And they've been very basic. Where they had more presets a few years ago, the A9S Master Series that I had here, as much as I love the image, and it in many ways, or in some ways, looked better than the CX. It had darker blacks. It wasn't quite as bright. It was more natural. It was more accurate. I felt there was less headroom in the settings. If you look at the CX's settings, all the presets that it has in SDR and in HDR, there is so much you can do with it picture quality wise. You can make the display look as saturated as you like. You can make it pop. You can make it natural. You can make it vivid. Whatever it is you want it to do, there is that headroom. And I don't feel there's that headroom with Sony. I felt like the A9S, it looked very good out of the box. It was a gorgeous panel, but it is what it kind of was what it was. It just was going to stay that appearance-wise. The flexibility wasn't there. I do like where I can make this look as cartoony as I want, as unnatural as I want, and as natural as I want. So that is the main reason why I want to stay with the CX or with LG. Now, I personally don't feel the C1 is going to be much better than the CX. It'll just be more expensive. So for me, that's not really an option. There are some rumors that the G1 Evo will be very expensive and also might be delayed. And now you might be looking at summer. So for me, it's just my personal reasoning. That's not going to be an option for me, is to wait and just sit with my 55-inch and wait for that panel to be released. Sony, as much as I love them, the promise of features is something I'll never be okay with. Now, regardless of whether they update the 900H, I did disagree with the fact that they haven't had it yet. I think that should have been done well before these new panels came out, especially for someone that owns a 900H. I do think they're going to do right by you guys. I think they are going to include it. However, I don't want to wait 3, 4, 5 months with a panel I've already paid full price for them to update it. So I'll put it to you this way. If I'm buying the Master Series next week, let's just say it comes out next week, and they decide that in 3 months they're going to update it for me and give me those gaming features, what I really, really like. Now, you're going to say too in the comments that Sony does have its own auto low latency mode. It does have its own kind of variable refresh rate that only works with the PS5. Well, I have a PS5, but I also have a Series X and a PC. It does not help me. I need it to do everything. Not a couple things, everything. And the CX does do everything for me and my personal needs. Now, going back to what we were saying about promises. So let's just say in 3 months they decide, hey, here's the features we promised you. Well, then I'd rather buy it in that 3 months when it's down about 20%. Sony typically drops their price within the first 3 or 4 months. They can drop it for a few hundred. They can drop a lot more than that, maybe even 1,000. I don't want to pay for something and then wait for it to be updated. If I had a Sony 900H, I'd be upset about the fact that I've had it this long without those features. Then now the new panels are all coming out with HDMI 2.1 with a better processor, and then they're going to update it. So for me, that's where all this gets a little bit messy and why I don't trust them in that one regard. I think it'll be a gorgeous panel. I'm dying to see the 1300 nits. It will definitely benefit HDR. It'll definitely be eye-popping. I am also in a very dark room, and there's not really one time where I've sat in front of the LG CX and said it's not bright enough. Now, I know many of you guys disagree with that. Many of you feel that OLEDs are very dim. But again, this video is only my personal usage and my personal experiences with two of these. And the A9S, which was here, I should say, and using that often. I did appreciate the natural look of it, as I mentioned, and the accuracy of the Sony, but I do like the CX or the LG look. I just do. You can disagree with me in the comments, and that's absolutely fine. But you guys have asked me my opinion. I figured I'd just do a video on it, why I'm not leaping to it. Usage, price, size, I really do feel that something should be a certain percentage better if it's going to cost a certain percentage more. Is it double in price? Close, it might be close, but is it 50% better? I will tell you emphatically it's not going to be. They'd have to invent something to make it 50% better, in my humble opinion. And the gaming features, I rather go with the company that has gone and had those features since the C9 and had 2 years under their belt and going into their third year with NVIDIA G-Sync, FreeSync, variable refresh rate, and the fact that they've updated their panels and have stayed with it, even though it's been a mess and it's been an abusive relationship. That's why I will stay with the LG CX. Now, look, this video is how I feel at the moment. I do want that panel back. Now, remember also, that panel is bought and paid for. So that is a part of it as well. Like many of you, your panels are bought and paid for. When you're thinking about jumping to another technology, remember that one you've already paid for. It will be in addition. Now, I'm in the rare spot where I have a relationship with the store and my panel, in a sense, will be, it's still there. I can just say no and get something new. But as long as they find me a clean CX, I think I'll be going with CX for the reasons that I listed. I think, again, the A90 is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it as much as you guys are. But that's the reason why I'm not going to just throw mine in the garbage and start gaming on the Master Series. I do think that LG still has the edge in regards to gaming. That's what I use it primarily for. And also, as I mentioned before, the feature set, being able to go into all those picture settings, being able to tweak it to make it look any way I want. And as I'm signing out, again, as I remember sitting there with the A9S and even the A9G, the picture was amazing. It was accurate, but trying to make it look much different, there was less headroom than there was on the LG. The LG definitely, to me, was more flexible in terms of what I could personally do with the image and make it look the way I want to make it look. So price, size, flexibility with the image and the settings, and the gaming features that it does have. I have no idea. Oh, I forgot to mention too, I like HGIG. I like having that option. I like having dynamic tone mapping. That's the flexibility that I mentioned earlier. I'm not sure if Sony will get behind that or if they will have it, but I like having that flexibility, and we'll see if they do have something compatible. But those are the things that I don't want to give up. And I always think when you upgrade anything, be it your car, your phone, there is always a compromise of a few things that you get that you love, and you lose a few things that you love. I don't want to do that. I don't have to do that. I will probably grab another 77-inch CX as long as they can find me one that is clean and get it calibrated, and it'll be back here as my personal display. You will see the A90J. You will see a lot of next year's panels in here at 55 inches. I'll have them comparing to the C10 or CX, but those are the reasons why I personally, as beautiful and as amazing as I'm sure it will be, that I won't leap to it, and I'll probably still stay with LG. Now, I'm not saying 100% because I have to see it next week, but for me, most likely you'll see with an LG CX in here. All right, guys, sorry for the long video. Love you guys. I will see you in the comments. Take care.